Hey everyone, welcome to a surprise video on my thoughts on movies and stuff. Today's video is on After We Fall, the third film in the After series. Now normally we wouldn't watch a movie like this, but luckily for us we got to watch a pre-release screening with Teamfinity. Teamfinity is a proudly South African content distributor of international films, local movies, and gaming content. They do it all. Be sure to check out their content on social media and tell them that the Netos sent you. You'll find all their links in the description. Now back to the review. Listen, complete honesty, I did not like this movie. None of us here at the Neto Bros liked this movie. We had a really hard time taking this movie seriously. Before we were even 20 minutes into the movie, we were over it. And that sucks because this movie is an hour 39 minutes. To summarize, for all of you who may not have seen any entry into the After series, Tess is a young girl in college who falls in love with an alcoholic bad boy named Hardin. She decides to commit in a highly toxic relationship with him because reasons. So far, they've kept their dumpster fire of a relationship going for 5 books and 3 movies. Their on and off love-hate relationship predominantly uses safe sex as superglue, yet even in this case, it falls apart most of the time. The movie is incredibly predictable, the dialogue is terrible in most scenes, and the camera work is just uninspiring. Seriously, if you're not turned on, then you're just stuck watching a bunch of young adults have a phone call while they touch themselves. Ugh. When it comes to the characters, they're all 2D. Even the main characters are as flat. What's something flat, Namari? Paper. When it comes to the characters, everyone is 2D, except for the ones that are 1D. But even the main characters are flatter than paper. Hardin is born right out of a teenage wet dream. He has childhood trauma, he dresses in all black, he has a bunch of tattoos, and he mopes about like Anakin Skywalker before he killed the younglings.
I don't like sand.
And then?
And as for Tess, well, Tess is horny. Beyond that, there's not much more to say about this movie. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. The format doesn't really change. It feels like lazy storytelling with the only real driving force behind anything is how quickly they can get these two bumping fuzzies again. The tension feels fabricated, and that makes viewers like me not invest in the movie because none of these characters feel real. They just feel like puppets on a poorly hidden string. And as a result, the whole narrative just feels unbelievable and begins to fall apart because you can see through everything, and as a result, the whole narrative falls apart. Alright, if you do want to watch this movie, then just be careful because I'm about to enter into spoiler territory here. But one of the big reveals of this movie, probably the biggest reveal of this movie, or at least it's meant to be, is that we discover that Christian is actually Hardin's father. But without having seen the first 2 films, both my brother and I already knew that. In fact, we watched the entire movie thinking that it was obvious that Christian was Hardin's father. So it didn't come to us as a surprise when the reveal was laid out in front of us. We just sat there, palms turned up, thinking to ourselves, that wasn't obvious? Nobody else knew? How did he not know? I mean, what? And let me remind you, that's meant to be the biggest reveal of this movie. It's quite sad, actually. It's lamentable because you can see that this movie tries to be a younger, more modern version of 50 Shades of Grey. Yet it takes everything 50 Shades of Grey did wrong and makes it worse. And on a grander scheme of things, I think that's a disconnect that I, as a viewer, have with this genre of film because they're meant to be erotic romance, yet they never really do the romance part right. And trust me, if you're looking for erotic, there's much cheaper ways to get it. I understand that toxic relationships are something that does happen in real life, and that drama can be very entertaining. Yes, love can hurt sometimes. And yes, sometimes we love people when they're not at their best, and they love us when we're not at our best, and we hurt each other despite knowing these things. But not learning from those mistakes for 3 feature-length movies is not entertaining. It's just Sokko levels of incredibly exhausting. Hashtag justice for Sokko. Also, before anybody says anything, yes, we did watch the previous movies to make sure that we understood the canon and tried to understand everything that happened in this movie, because we watched this movie without watching the first two movies. But even with watching the first two movies, this third movie still kind of doesn't make sense. It doesn't take a genius to point out that Tess and Hardin are terrible for each other. They bring out the worst in each other, and in a shocking turn of events, Tess is far more toxic than Hardin. That boy ought to run for the hills.
Emotional abuse.
But that's another video. Hopefully one I never have to make, because I don't think I want to deal with this series ever again. But I don't want this review to only be negatives. I think it's very important that I point out that my brothers and I are not the target market for this movie. I am not the target market for this movie. I'm aware of that. I don't know how the people behind After intend to reach their target market, because their market is probably not old enough to watch this movie. But I get it. I get it. This is not for me. Listen, if toxic on and off relationships where people deliberately hurt each other, senseless drama and gratuitous sex is your thing, then you're gonna love this movie, and by all means you should watch it. Watch it in cinema, buy that ticket, you'll have a great time. In fact, I'd argue that this movie is practically made for you. And you know what? From here at the Neto Bros, we say more power to you. You should be free to enjoy the content that you enjoy without judgment. But as far as I am concerned, this movie is an incredible waste of time, and I shamelessly give it the first ever Neto Bro 0 out of 5. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not sure what it is right now, but at the time of me writing this video, I went to go check on Rotten Tomatoes, and the only other review on this movie that was there at the time was in Spanish. Nadie vio esta película. But that's all from me, guys. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified about every time we upload. After that, visit our Patreon and let us hold $1. Once again, a major thanks and a shout out to Teamfinity, and also a major thanks goes to our Patreon bros whose names you can see on screen. Thank you so much for believing in our content, and thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what movies or series you'd like to see a video on my thoughts on next. And we normally post these kinds of videos on Thursdays with Guy 1 and Guy 2. So be sure to be here next week Thursday to see another video on my thoughts on movies or series and stuff. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.